Hello and welcome to OppiFM. We will be spending the next half an hour discussing the topic sweeping university campus, the current staff and workers strike. My name is Paige Muller and I will be your host for what promises to be an exhilarating discussion.
Educating the entire student body on race, gender, class, sexuality.
There's no objective journalism.
No one has to perform poverty at all.
Not all students matter in this university, and that is a fact. It's supposed to be about robust political debate.
This is OppiFM.
Alright, let's jump right into it. So Rhodes University has been experiencing, I think we could say, the beginning of strike movements and kind of go-slows and tension, really, in the university since about the 3rd of April, am I right? Somewhere along there where we kind of met deadlocks when talking to management about wage increases in general. So today in studio we have with us Associate Professor Mark de Vos, a representative from the National Tertiary Educations Union, more commonly known as NTEU, and Ntutu, the local spokesperson and representative for the National Health, Education and Allied Workers Union, also known as NEHAWU. Try saying that 5 times fast. Welcome to you both and thank you so much for joining us here in studio.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
All right, lovely to have you. So let me get this straight. Initially, we were offered 5% as a fee increase. 4%? Wow.
Actually,
okay.
the whole process started long before April. Already in November last year, the union submitted their demands, and then we met in early January, about the 8th of January or so, to talk about it. And half the management team didn't pitch up for that. The finance people just boycotted that meeting. And so right away, we were off to a bad start, and so we had to lodge, both unions together lodged a grievance complaint to force management to the table, which eventually bore fruit. In February, we started wage negotiations. Then we were offered 4% initially, not 4% on individual salaries, just 4% what they call basket shift. So the whole salary bill shifts by 4%. And then we had some negotiations around that. Eventually, we got to 5%. Yes.
Okay, and
And
that's
in
where
fact,
this
the
started.
university didn't know where that extra percentage was going to come from.
Exactly.
Okay, so Mantetu, you were kind of there for all of these discussions. You guys were both present.
No, I'm not part of the negotiating team.
Okay.
I'm an additional member in the NEHAWU executive, but because we were elected after the wage team was already selected, so the wage negotiating team cannot be changed. It has got to be consistent, the same people. So I'm not part of the wage negotiation team.
Can I ask you, what does 4% or even 5% come to a worker, for instance? What does that mean in real terms, in their day-to-day living? What does that mean?
You know, especially with black women, because the majority of employees at Rhodes University are black women, and they are in the lower grades. My salary is not my salary. It's my family's salary. It's my extended family's salary. It's a community salary. So from that 5%, after all the deductions that have been done, pension, provident fund, UIF, whatever that needs to be deducted from your payslip, very little or nothing is left. So you've got to try and make that nothing something in order to feed your family, you clothe your children, pay for their education. And most of the time you normally identify a very poor family whom you notice that they don't have anything on the table, whom you notice that they don't have electricity today. So you kind of adopt that extra family, which is normally not yours, but is in your neighborhood. So with the nothing that you've got, but you still have got to share it amongst the family and the community. Most of our families are unemployed. Most of the families only get the income from pension grants. And that pension grant is about 1.5. So you've got that kind of a situation. And as a working person within the community, we normally show each other the pay slip. Man, where is this increase? You can't see it. And as a result, you end up going to loan sharks, being indebted, loaning from this person to pay that one. You pay this account this month, the next month the account is not paid. And you know, our children are in the youth stage, you know how demanding they are, and then they normally want to wear labels, which we can't afford. So in a way, it's a tragic. It's a tragic. This is what is making the youth, where there is no income at all, become criminals. They become thieves. They become addicted to drugs because they want to a certain kind of a lifestyle, which you cannot afford at home. And what they do, they identify a family or a house within the community that is well off than them. So they repossess from that family so that they can be able to suit their needs. Or they mark people on the streets so that they can be able to suit their needs.
It sounds like what I'm hearing from you is that it's actually a much bigger social issue that's being addressed here. That's actually being ignored and swept under the rug. And I think that actually plays testament to the fact that for the first time, your two unions are working together. What do you have to say about that, Mark? The fact that it's now brought these two unions together.
So can I just actually go back to the previous
sure,
point?
100%.
There's this statistic called the dependency ratio, which you can Google. And the dependency ratio for Grahamstown is 1 to 44. What that means is that each working person supports 44 non-working people. Now, those would be children, pensioners, people who are just not in the workplace, etc. So when we say that, our money supports our community, we really mean that literally. Every single working person in this town supports 44 non-working people, which is a frightening number. And that's why every percent is worth fighting for. Okay. In terms, your previous question, in terms of what it actually means, we've got to be clear that 5% is a wage cut. Because the inflation rate, goes up and down, but it's about 6.1, goes up to about 6.5 and around there. So anything below inflation is a wage cut, and we've worked that out. And the numbers are a couple of R100 per worker. For someone at my level, that would be something like 750 Rand wage cut.
Okay, you see, now I'm understanding this, but also what's coming through to me is that we get a lot of memorandums and public statements, and what we don't get enough of as a community is this conversation. Everyone sees protesters and, the evil protester. So what we've done is our journalist, Erin Alexander, has spoken to the everyday staff member and protester and asked them more about this and what they think on the salary increase.
The Rhodes University staff have had ongoing industrial action over the wage increase since the 20th of April this year. We spoke to a member of the ground staff, Mr. Msondisi, a member of the kitchen staff, Mr. Longalose, and a member of academic staff, Mr. Rod Amner, about the original wage offer, why they have protested, and how they have gone about protesting.
I am taking part in the protest. My participation is really limited to the kind of pickets and, the lunchtime protest rather than a very, conscious go slow. I think it is difficult for academics because we do feel responsible for our students and for the academic project.
It's just because the university is official 5%, Sibetina Sifuna 7.5%. Well, guys, decided to industrial action. 5% is not even an inflation rate. Inflation rate is 6.9. How can you give a person a 5% while inflation rate is 6.9? Yeah, that is what we are aiming at. If they didn't give us a proper answer, we are going to a blown strike, which means everything will put tools down. Yeah, because I think you have already showed support because by not xesha amakhitshi enganeniki ukutya ngexesha elifanelekileyo nikwazile into yoba nikhalaze kumanagement is part of support. Okwesibini, when it comes kwixesha le-blow strike, USASCO is already promised us behind us.
Because of that, I think it's about the money. The process they just take, I think roads give them 5%. They say they don't want by 5%, so they want 7%. I don't know, because they have money, but we don't know what's going on, because we put our demand, they don't talk. We're starting with the go slow. With the strike, maybe we're coming there. I think maybe Wednesday we'll take a decision. Maybe we can go to strike. Number one is the cost of living, and number two, this university, we make it very clean, all that you are the cleaners and the best university clean, you see. And even graduation were number one, but you don't see that, you see, we had them.
Mr. Amner also spoke on the funding crisis Rhodes is facing.
The point of protest is to highlight a crisis. I am concerned that Rhodes actually will reach a threshold of affordability around this stuff, and there are other strategies that we need to employ. We need to come up with a comprehensive plan for the size and shape of this university, for alternative income streams. You know, there's a hell of a lot of intellectual capital in this place, and I'm surprised in a way that we haven't put those heads to better use in deliberating about our future. It's worrying to see it face this level of crisis, frankly, on a funding level. It just seems outrageous.
You're listening to OppiFM.
Welcome back. We're in studio with NTEU and Mark discussing the current workers' protest on UCKAR campuses. Now let's talk a little bit about the just previous history. So yesterday, for instance, what was deemed as illegal protesting yesterday, emails were sent out not only to staff but to students and to paying parents about the action being illegal and wasn't communicated to the university, and so on and so on. What concerns me is the threat of action being taken. Are we worried about this? Is this a serious possibility at this stage? NTEU, could you answer that, please?
The illegal strike that resulted from the industrial action that was taken by the members, NEHAWU members yesterday. This came out of a feedback meeting which was held on Tuesday, where shop stewards reported to membership that the university is offering 6%. And it's offering 100 rand for housing subsidy and 30 rands for transport allowance for those ones that are benefiting from that. And we felt that I think this is a build-up anger from staff members. A build-up anger because, one, everybody is committed to this university. We know that Rhodes University is a source of income for Grahamstown because it is the major employer. And if you are employed at Rhodes University, at least you can guarantee that your family has got something to eat. You'll be able to kind of financially support them and maybe support your community. So from that meeting, we know that there are steps to be followed in order to go to an industrial strike. And we have already got the certificate from CCMA, ourselves, both NEHAWU and NTEU, that whatever we decide on, or we continue being in dispute with management, therefore we can decide whether to go on strike or not. And our community has decided, NEHAWU community decided that we are going on strike because 6% is far below inflation rate. And we had to give Rhodes University a notice to say that we are going to embark on an industrial strike. And that letter was supposed to have been written by the regional regional office. And at the same time, yesterday was supposed to be the day of the wage negotiations. Then the membership said that for management to see that we are serious, let us accompany you to the wage negotiations. Embarking on an industrial strike is the last resort, especially to the lowest paid person. It means that you are taking a sacrifice and a half. Because once you embark on an industrial strike, whether legal or illegal, it's either that you are going to get no work, no pay, or you could be retrenched or dismissed. So these three factors play a major role in our life. We know it. We know it. We have tried to reason with the membership, but as I said, that the deeper anger within people. Because remember, some of these workers, they also have kids that are studying at Rhodes. It's not somebody else's kid that you don't care about. Our kids are also studying here. And we have been trained by Rhodes University that the kids that are working at that are studying at Rhodes University, we need to adopt them so that they don't feel that their parents are not here. Treat them as if they are your kids. And that is what is making us different from other universities, because we're also able to share that motherly love or that parenthood to you as students. For example, if you are because you've got this kind of an attachment, especially with the food services staff. So if the person in the rooms and in the food services, they see that Mark doesn't look right today. What's your problem, Mark? And then so they play that motherly role or that parental role, and they're able to notify whoever is in charge, because that student is able to communicate. But when the university is treating us like this, then that built-in anger doesn't want to reason. And as a result, we took the kind of action that we took yesterday.
Okay.
We couldn't step back as leadership and say that we told you that this is not supposed to be doing. We had to make sure that we go with our membership.
Yeah, so I mean, of course, you guys have so much value to the students here at Rhodes in particular.
Thank you.
I mean, we adore you,
Thank
all
you.
of you, and we're here for you. You know, you've already had the SASCO membership tell you that we support you. The SRC has given out a statement of support. What I'm hearing from you is that it is a risk, and you know it's a risk.
We know.
But it's time. And I think until your representatives had a similar issue and you drafted it in the demands, where you said 2 years worth of retrenchments, those need to be suspended. And I think from there, it's kind of a gauging that maybe, yeah, you might get your salary bump, but it might come at the expense of some people's jobs. Is that where it's coming from?
No. Well, yes and no. We were set to... Management for a long time now has been talking, crisis talk, where they'll say, we don't have enough money in the budget. Last year it was, we can't make it to the end of the year. If we close down for 1 week, the university will close down forever. I'm not making this up. It's actually real. And you go to faculty meeting, and then they present these budgets and things. The beginning of this year as well, there was a emergency meeting for what they call the extended leadership, the deans and directors, where they presented budgets that showed, massive slashes to salaries, and this went to council, so it's not a secret, and that was before we even started talking about wages. So management was talking this crisis talk, or well before we asked for money. So no, I don't think getting a fair wage is going to force anyone to be retrenched. Retrenchment, if it is on the table, would have been on the table anyway. But technically, management is not talking about retrenchment, because if they do so, then they are forced by the Labour Relations Act to talk to the unions about it. So they don't talk about it, but they so they don't have to talk to us.
So it's kind of like an implied but never said.
Well, they presented
of
in
threat.
closed meetings these numbers on various minutes of various meetings which I've attended. The numbers are massive. Can't really give out the figures because I'm sworn to secrecy. But these are facts that are out there, and I don't know. I don't think getting a fair wage is. I don't think the unions have pushed the university over the edge. If that's the implication, the issue has been there all along. And in fact, the unions, by making a strong stand, I was just saying to the university, listen to us. We are part of the solution. Staff are not part of the problem. And don't think that you can cut your budgets in a way that remove the most valuable asset to this university, which is its human capital, and then expect to come out the other side and everything will be hunky-dory. People matter.
I'm definitely hearing what you're saying, and I agree with you to a large extent. But NTEU's settled. You demanded 7.5%, which is actually 0.5% higher than what you've demanded as NEHAWU. So they demanded 7% on their memo. But are you happy with the settlement?
Well,
at the end
when
of the
we
day?
started the negotiations, both unions were at 7.5. That was our initial demand.
Okay.
Then management made an offer of 6.5%, I don't know, about a week or so ago. 6.5% basket shift plus 100 Rand extra on the housing allowance plus an afternoon off per month. And we put that to our members, and our members came back and said they were satisfied with that. So we had to carry out the mandate of our members, and we sent a letter to management saying we were happy to settle on that.
Okay, so the official statement then from NTEU is our members are happy, we've settled, we're good with this deal.
Yes.
Okay, and in terms of real capital, how it comes into play with members, it's no longer a salary cut.
6.5 is not going to make anyone rich. It really just keeps pace with inflation. So it's not that we're getting a better deal, as it were. It's just that, we at least not sinking. And I think members are satisfied with that, given the economic circumstances the university is in.
And Tutu, does this create any tension between the two unions? Now, I know it's a bit of a complicated situation because it's kind of detracted from some of the power, the negotiating power you have, losing your backup because they've settled. Is there any kind of agreement you guys have made to keep the peace, keep the harmony, make sure that there's still support for one another? How are we maintaining the support while continuing the academic project?
There is no negativity between us and NTEU. Remember, in the past, when union, we used to have Transport and General Workers Union and then NEHAWU. When NEHAWU members were on strike, you could see the rift or the gap and the negativity towards each other, because these ones feel that my bin has not been emptied, my cups has not been washed, and they are there singing outside for nothing. But now, for some reason, or there's this understanding between us that there's nothing to. It's not necessary that we should be enemies, because we are fighting for the one cause and to improve our members' living situations. So there is nothing that is negative between us and NTEU. And in fact, NTEU has said that to their members, if you find that your office is dirty, don't take a vacuum cleaner and do what the cleaner is supposed to do. Leave the current situation as it is. That on its own is kind of giving us strength. And on our side as well, as much as we're on an illegal strike, and you know that toilets are the major areas, because we are on strike, and the main area that is being used for toilets is the main admin. So it's not unusual for you to see that as much you are on strike, then a person see that, there's no toilet paper, and volunteers to go and put in a toilet paper. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to be affected, you're going to be affected, someone else is going to be affected. So we need to come to some kind of an understanding that there is no need for us to be enemies at all. They have settled. We still feel that the university can move because they are giving us 6.9%. At least if the university could give us that 0.1% to 7%, things would be better for our members.
And I'd say that the camaraderie and the ability to support one another here has always been a big thing here at Rhodes, whether it be students, staff, workers. We've always kind of come together to back one another. And I think that comes into what we're going to be talking about next. We had one of our journalists, Z Magawaza, go out and talk to several students about how they're currently feeling about the protest and how it's affecting them.
We have a few friends in Res that were talking to me today about not receiving any food or anything, and they haven't got their e-wallet money, and a lot of them haven't actually been able to eat, for a few days, which is actually very problematic. I think there are a lot of things that they haven't taken into account because of these protests, mostly to do with the students' interests, but also, I understand from the workers' point of view, it is a very important protest, and they do have every right to protest for, what reasons they have.
I do support it. I support them opening the DH when they feel like it. I support the GOSO because it's essentially it's a greater cause. It's not just about when I want to eat and when I don't want to eat, I'm not trying to say anyone is anything. I think the only thing I'd say to those students is to try and be more open and to try and be more compassionate. For the most part, that is what we can do as students, is to be compassionate and understanding of the situation.
So, they say actions speak louder than words. So it's one thing complaining about it, but actually doing something about it is, more profound.
I'm from Diggs, so the whole res thing doesn't affect me. It's just affected a lot of my friends. A lot of them complain that they don't get enough food with the money they're given. And also, just walking up and down the hill, people say it's dangerous and whatnot.
OppiFM.
All right, we're back in studio and we're discussing the workers' protest that's happening here on Rhodes campus, and we have a representative from both NTEU and NEHAWU. What we've just heard were the voices of some of the students here on campus who, of course, are being affected, whether it be their dining hall closed or, as you mentioned, toilets or go-slows for staff and. I think the main theme that came out of what we've just listened to is that students are aware and are feeling the discomfort, but at the same time know the need for the protest. But what I want to ask is if that presence of students, if that camaraderie that we were talking about earlier of coming together has been present on the ground or not so much.
We have seen some students amongst us giving support. And even today, when we're getting the feedback from our leaders who were in negotiations last night, some students that were going to lectures, they kind of stopped and listened. So we do see their support, and we do feel their support.
And in the classroom, Mark, how's it going in the classroom in terms of student engagement with the issue at hand here?
Well, the teaching program has not been affected largely by the protest, except to the extent, certain venues might not be open for Dornies, etc., which is, I think, a reasonably small price to pay to skip the Dornie. I found student attendance has been very good. A lot of students want to learn, and for those that want to learn, learning continues. We've had some discussions about industrial action and what it means, but generally just stick to the subject.
All right. And Tutu, do you find that any students have been hostile towards the protest action in any way, whether it be in dining halls during go-slows or the like?
No, we haven't got that kind of a report that there have been students that have been hostile. I think generally there is an understanding that we are on strike or on go slow because we are unhappy with management, with what they are offering us. To us, an increase in your salary, it means that you at least you can manage 1 or 2, 3 financial issues that are needed by you or by your family.
All right, and then I think a large portion of that, maybe that underlying support, even though they may be feeling discomfort, might come back to that Fees Must Fall protest and the support that NEHAWU particularly showed towards students. Maybe that's coming back in a positive way now towards your action. Do you think going forward that maybe there could be a march that includes all staff, workers, students, to kind of get the point across?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. We have not discussed any future actions with the student bodies. Maybe that is still coming. I don't know.
And now we're still kind of in a deadlock, and I agree that a lot of what's been done hasn't. First off, it happens in the dark for a lot of us. None of us really know what goes on in the meetings. For instance, your 4%, that's not published. So in terms of that, if we're hearing reports that the university's broke and it's going to close down, Mark, how true are those?
It's really hard to say. I think it is fair to say the university is in financially very difficult position, and that is quite serious as far as we know. But it's also hard to assess just what that means, particularly because the numbers keep changing. So the Vice Chancellor set out a circular a few weeks back saying the university was in crisis and had to save 10 million rand on its budget. Now, something is not adding up there. If it's 10 million rand is, like a very small percentage of the budget, which is 450 million rand a year is paid on staff alone.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so 10 million rand off that is hardly a big cut, and I wouldn't call that a crisis. But that announcement did not match up with some of the other numbers I've heard the Executive Director of Finance say, which are many, many times in excess of 10 million. So it depends who you're listening to assess the seriousness of it, but it is certainly very serious.
And I think clarity would have been nice. We did unfortunately invite management in, and they declined to speak to us. Do you find that there is on and off a level of secrecy around what's going on here? It's not really open.
Yeah, I think management is, by its very nature, a secretive kind of organization. I don't think they're bad people. But, when normal people get into management positions, the institution takes over and they stop speaking as people and start speaking as management people, if I can put it that way. And that's why unions are so important, because unions have legal rights to certain kind of information. We sit in a lot of important committees, and often it's the only way that ordinary members of staff can hear actually some of the facts. So we put some of those things on our Facebook page. Some of them are just stuff we can't distribute. If it's like certain parts of council minutes, etc., we can't distribute that. But it's certainly we can talk to people that matter, and we can engage with them and find out stuff. And that's why unions are so important, because management by itself is not accountable to anyone except itself. And unions ensure the accountability of institutions to people on the ground.
Can I chip into your previous question? That says that management seems to be, Rhodes University seems to be in crisis. To a layman on the street, a person who does not understand what that means, and we see that when NEHAWU members are on strike, then Rhodes University is able to hire high tech.
Yeah.
Where does it get that money from? When the kitchen staff are on go slow, management is able to give each student 70 rands. Where does that money come from? We also don't understand when management is saying that they are in a crisis situation, and the posts that are advertised that cost about R1 million an individual being paid R1 million per year. Where is this crisis? And you also get a situation where there are even posts right now that are not filled. And there's also this strategy about Rhodes University that if my position is vacant, it takes about 3, 4, 5, 6 months to fill my post. Where does that saving go to? So these are the things that management needs to clarify and make us understand, because I'm the person who's ignorant, who don't understand maybe the numbers, the accounting, what they are talking about. But with my naked eye, this is the reality that I see. So if they say that there is no money, what happened to the roads money? Tell us, what did you do? Because you can't tell me that roads is in a crisis situation far worse than Forte, far worse than Walter Sisulu. These things, we fail to understand these things. We know university as being the best university in the Eastern Cape. But if Forte is able to give its staff 10% increase, the lowest paid person gets grades 1 to 5, 10% and 7%, 6 and above. I can't understand it. I can't understand.
And I think there are a lot of nods of agreement here in the studio. It's a mystery, really, and it would be lovely to have these questions answered, and maybe we can get management in and we can address this at some stage when they're willing to come in and talk to us. But unfortunately now, we have run out of time, but this conversation doesn't need to end. This conversation must continue and will continue, I'm sure. But a big thank you to our guests here in studio and our audience. Thank you to Assistant Professor Mark de Vos, member of NTEU, and thank you so much to Ntutu with NEHAWU. Thank you so much for both of you for coming through today. We really appreciated this conversation. I think it was very productive. You have been listening to myself, Paige Muller, on OppiFM, and please find more of our content on YouTube. Thank you. Goodbye.
Can I have your attention? Educating the entire student body on race, gender, class, sexuality.
There's no objective journalism.
No one has to perform poverty at all.
Not all students matter in this university, and that is a fact. It's supposed to be about robust political debate.
This is OppiFM.